with help from Caroline Ferris. I'm Paul Haberstrood. Thanks for listening. For service and devotion, you would think that I would deserve a fair promotion. Want to move ahead, but the boss won't seem to let me. I swear sometimes that man is out to get me. They let you dream just to watch him shatter. You're just a step on the boss man's ladder, but you got dreams he'll never take away. Same boat with a lot of your friends, waiting for the day your ship will come in and the tide's gonna turn and it's all gonna roll your way. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind and you never get the credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5, yeah, they got where they want you. There's a better life, and you think about it, don't you? It's a rich man's game, no matter what they call it. And you spend your life putting money in his wallet. 9 to 5, oh, what a way to make a living. Barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5, yeah, they got you where they want you. There's a better life, and you dream about it, don't you? It's a rich man's game, no matter what they call it. And you spend your life.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
Are you ready to share your music with the world? CBC Music's Searchlight Contest is on, looking for Canada's next breakthrough musical act. This could be your time to shine. Enter an original song for a chance to launch your music career and win some great prizes, including an industry showcase, a distribution deal, and musical instruments. Get ready to take it to the next level. CBC Music Searchlight 2024. Enter now at cbc.ca/searchlight.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show. Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and...
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Rosanna Hempel in Winnipeg. At 12 o'clock, it's 16 degrees in Winnipeg. Cloudy today with 60% chance of showers. The latest Winnipeg Police statistical report shows violent crime, especially in the downtown, is spiking. Dave Bowman is with the Winnipeg Police Data Intelligence Unit. He says total crime, though, including property crimes, decreased last year.
Violent crime is the exception, as we really didn't see any downturn during the pandemic and continued to see an upward trend in 2023, increasing by 12.1% over 2022 and by 31.4% over the 5-year average.
Bowman says violent youth crime is surging, up 23% last year. The report shows violent crime severity is also trending upward. Assaults, robberies, and assaults on police officers were up significantly. 1 in 5 people charged with a weapons crime are youth. Community groups in Winnipeg warn a planned cut to city grants could put programs for youth at risk. CBC's Cameron McLean reports several delegates spoke against the cuts at City Hall this morning.
The city currently divides $3.4 million among a variety of groups through its annual community grant program. In the recently adopted 4-year budget, that amount drops by more than $2 million starting next year. Groups that previously had their grants approved through the annual budget will now have to apply to a new program, and the money must be tied to a specific project and cannot be used for core funding. Grant recipients include the Boys and Girls Club, Art City, and the Downtown Community Safety Safety Partnership. Delegates at the Executive Policy Committee called the changes short-sighted and threaten programs that promote community safety and well-being. Mayor Scott Gillingham says the city has to control costs. He also doesn't want the city taking on responsibility for providing services that fall under provincial jurisdiction. The proposed changes need approval from council. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba is seeing a dramatic increase in the number of cases of meningococcal disease. Since December, we've recorded 19 cases. Usually we have 6 in a year. Dr. Carol Kurbis is a provincial medical officer of health. She says the rare and potentially fatal bacterial infection has been affecting mostly young children and infants. Kurbis says it can be treated with antibiotics if caught early.
It's a fairly rapid onset, so people usually, they might feel like a flu-like illness initially, but it rapidly progresses. So they have a stiff neck, headache, fever, they may have nausea and vomiting, a purplish rash on the body.
Kurbis says the cases this year do not appear to be related. A new study says Canada's poverty rate is significantly higher than current statistics suggest. The study, which uses a European metric, has found that 1 in 4 Canadians are living in poverty. The currently accepted estimate is 1 in 10. Richard Mattern is with Food Banks Canada.
Out of an 11-item index, these would be items that most Canadians would think are essential. Being able to get around your community, being able to afford protein at least every other day, being able to afford clothes for job interviews. Out of this list of 11 items that most Canadians think are essential, 25% could not afford 2 or more of them. And that's indicating to us people are living at a poverty level standard of living.
The new measurement means nearly 6 million more Canadians are living in poverty than what is reflected in the latest Statistics Canada data. The study is published by Food Banks Canada with the support of the Maple Leaf Centre for Food Security. McGill University has broken off negotiations with members of the pro-Palestinian encampment on its campus. The school says protesters have rejected its latest offer of mediation, and it is asking police to intervene to dismantle the encampment. Lauren McCallum reports.
Today, in a letter to the McGill community, President Deep Saini says the university will immediately begin the process to explore divestment from companies that make money off military weapons, regardless of the countries in which they operate. He says McGill will also take other actions, including disclosing the sources of some of its smaller investments. These were part of an offer made to representatives of the encampment last week, an offer that also included amnesty to students and faculty involved in the protest. But several of the protesters rejected the offer, calling it laughable. Now Saini says it is clear no fruitful outcome will result from talks with the protesters, so McGill is ending discussions. He says McGill will now pursue disciplinary action against students and staff participating in the encampment. Yesterday, Montreal police said they would not be dismantling the encampment anytime soon, calling it a civil dispute. Lauren McCallum, CBC News, Montreal.
Back in Winnipeg, they slept through pouring rain, all for that shower of icing on a donut. Hundreds of Winnipeggers lined up for blocks to be among the first to have local Krispy Kreme donuts. The U.S. chain opened its first outlet in Winnipeg on Sterling Lion Parkway this morning. Michael Bohinski got in line at 5 yesterday afternoon.
It melts in your mouth. Science can't explain why these Krispy Kreme donuts are so good. I don't know what they put. I don't know what they put in these things, but it might be the best thing. It might be the best food item in the world.
Bohinski says the first 12 people in line receive golden tickets, which gives them a free box of donuts every month for a year. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 12:30.
Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining us today for Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on your CBC News app or your CBC Listen app. I'm Janet Stewart. What impact has social media had on your family? Has it been good for your kids? Or has it made things worse when it comes to their self-esteem? Child psychologist Dr. Michelle Warren joins us for our call-in conversation today after your 12:30 news and weather. A lot has changed in Altona over the past 26 years, especially the population. The town wants its new master plan for recreation and active transportation to reflect the needs of people who live there now. Hear how they're reaching out to gather ideas coming up. But first, how do you change the way people see your downtown? You give them a reason to grow and to live there. Thank you for joining us today for Radio Noon. Downtown Brandon is getting ready to shine. Anything that has needed to be changed, like zoning or bylaws, to allow the city to take advantage of the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund has been approved by Council. Now the city can start taking applications from developers for its Downtown Market Housing Incentive Program. Amanda Dupuis is Brandon's Community Housing and Wellness Programmer. I spoke with her on Zoom this morning. What are those incentives?
Okay, so it's going to be in three pieces. One is there going to be development charges. So if you're building new housing in Brandon, typically there's development charges, which can be a barrier for some developers. So if there's going to be 4 different areas that have like a sliding scale of incentives, and in area 1 and area 2, which is the more core areas, will be offsetting 100% of the development charges. The second piece of the incentive is tax abatement. So again, that's on a sliding scale, being up to 100% of the taxes being offset for 20 years.
I'm just going to stop you there for a second. I apologize. The development charges are being offset. Development charges are those kinds of things, extra fees that developers pay to cover the cost of new infrastructure, whatever it is that's required, right? That's what you mean by that. Okay, so nobody's getting a free building here. That's just their development charges.
That's right.
That's right. Okay. And then there's tax credits.
Yeah. So the tax abatement, if you build right in the core for area 1, it would be 100% of the taxes that are offset for 20 years. So a significant tax offsetting. And that if it is a mixed use building, because you can build commercial on the main floor and residential above. And as long as it's 50% or more residential, but the tax offsetting is on the entire building.
Okay.
So that's a good incentive. And it can go in area 3, then it's 50% for 10 years. So it's on that sliding scale. And the third incentive is capital grants per dwelling unit. So it starts at $5,000 for a 1-bedroom unit in area 2, or if you build in area 1, which is right in the core, and you build a 4-bedroom, it could be up to $20,000 per unit. And so these incentives are really important that we put them in the bylaw that they were as of right, which means basically the developers know what they're going to get. If they put in X request, you're going to get Y without having to go to council. Because we had some incentive programs for different things like affordable housing in the past, and it was a bit of a challenge for the developers. I could put in a request and do all the work in order to put together a project, but then they kind of would have to have their fingers crossed when they come to the city, not really sure what they might get. So this way it will create some certainty for developers.
You always hear from businesses, they like certainty. They like to know that. Yes. We're talking about your downtown here, Brandon's downtown. Downtowns forever have struggled with perceptions that people think they're not safe or that they're... What does that mean to Brandon? And how could all this development to bring more and more people downtown change that?
Yeah, so I've lived in Brandon for over 20 years, and I've seen the downtown when I first got here and as it's changed over the years. And I would say that perception piece is a real challenge, especially working in this new position for the last year. I definitely see how you can have 2 people walk down the same street and come out with totally different ideas of what has happened. There can be a negative perception of downtown. For sure, to be fair, there are challenges downtown like anywhere else in the city, but there's also really a lot of amazing things that are happening downtown. And I'm a big advocate for what you focus on grows. And so there's something that I'm really passionate about is to really focus on the positive things that are happening downtown to make sure that more people are comfortable to come and live and play and shop downtown, because there is some really amazing things, especially when we have people, I would say, that come from outside of Brandon or outside of Canada, and they first come to Brandon. A lot of times they'll hear, oh, the downtown, like, you got to be careful down there. And then they actually come downtown and look around and think, like, it is an amazing place. There's lots of great stuff happening here. So I'd really love to help spread that positive message, because there's a lot of great things that are happening in businesses that are coming. And so now with this housing, it'll create more foot traffic and, just diversify who's living downtown, because currently there is a lot of affordable housing or low-income housing that is downtown. And we really wanted to create spaces for people to live that also work downtown. There's a lot of young professionals that live downtown, and we'd like to give them an opportunity to have a great place to live. And there's also a university that's very close to our downtown, and to have like university students to be able to come and it would just add another level of vibrancy. So we'd really love to change that perception and to create some momentum with both the housing as well as
Of course, we hear a huge push right now. We need affordable housing. You talked about affordable housing currently exists in downtown Brandon. Would this new housing initiative in any way force that out? Because that is not something that people would love. Or do you have other vacant buildings there that you're hoping to redevelop?
Yeah, so we're not looking about pushing anybody out. We're just looking at welcoming more people in. And there's lots of space. There's lots of space downtown in order to create more market housing as well as affordable housing. So now that we have this downtown market housing incentive program launched, it's next on our agenda to also launch an affordable housing incentive program that will be citywide. And so people can also, developers can also apply for that affordable housing incentive program once it's out later this year. And we would welcome that housing downtown as well.
Amanda Dupuis, thank you for your time today and explaining this to us.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Amanda Dupuis is working with the City of Brandon to help with their development and communication needs. Her title is Brandon's Community Housing and Wellness Programmer. She would like developers to know that for more information on the program, you can go to housingincentive.brandon.ca. Well, that music got me dancing, and this music is bound to get me dancing. Anyone who's got a connection to Cape Breton, Nova Scotia will know the Barra McNeils. Well, Lucy McNeil has performed as a member of that family group for nearly 4 decades. She's now stepping out into the spotlight on her own. So we're going to play her debut solo album, and this song is from it. It's called Angel's Whisper. It's about couples dancing to the radio in days gone by. So get up and dance today. Unless, of course, you're driving. Then it might be a bit awkward. Here's Lucy McNeil with Radio Sweethearts.
One night, a long time ago, 2 lovers danced to an old radio. The music played clear and bright. The radio sweethearts waltzed all night. She was pretty, he was tall. He placed the furniture next to the wall. They closed their eyes, the stars shone bright. The radio sweethearts waltzed all night. Years have passed, the lovers are gone. The story is over, I'm told. But I believe, and I always will, the radio sweethearts are waltzing still. last night I had a dream that Mama and Papa had met once again. There in the glow of heaven's light, the radio sweethearts waltzed all night. Years have passed, the lovers are gone, the story is over, I'm told. But I believe, and I always will, the radio sweethearts are waltzing still.
From Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia, that was Lucy McNeil with Radio Sweethearts. Kind of made me think about my grandparents, Gordon and Ellen Gerard from Sydney, Nova Scotia. I hope they're dancing still, those Radio Sweethearts. Her debut solo album, Angel's Whisper, is out now.
Who cries more, winners or losers?
Cry if you want to cry.
Can heartbreak help break records?
You want to be great? You need to sacrifice.
Do bigger fans have higher blood pressure?
How's your heart rate?
Why do we love rooting for underdogs?
Gotta support the home team.
What makes top dogs go the distance? How far will champions go to win?
I was just curious.
Does it matter if they have nothing to lose?
Is that a yes?
When you get curious, you get CBC.
It is 12:19. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Janet Stewart. You may have heard this in the news yesterday. The U.S. Surgeon General wants to see warning labels on social media platforms like the ones we see on cigarette cartons. He told the New York Times social media has contributed to a mental health crisis among young people. What do you think of that? Do you agree with the idea? Do you think warning labels will help? Do you agree that social media is indeed harmful, especially to youth? Join our call-in conversation today after your 12:30 news and weather. We've got a local child psychologist to join us. So if you have questions, you need advice, call in. Altona wants people who live there to know their voice matters when it comes to planning what the town needs for recreation and active transportation. We're going to hear about how it's reaching out this week to gather ideas coming up. First, let's take a look at your weather forecast. For Winnipeg right now, the rain that we were seeing earlier today has moved off. At least it has in the downtown. We have dry streets out downtown right now. We are expecting, though, a few scattered showers yet to come today. Those showers will taper off overnight, continuing this evening overnight, leaving us with a sunny day. On our Wednesday, a high tomorrow of 22 degrees. Mix of sun and clouds for Thursday and Friday with temperatures in the mid-20s. Riley Lachuk joins us with a full look at your Manitoba forecast after the 12:30 news. It has been 26 years since Altona, Manitoba last completed a recreation and active transportation master plan. Now it's reaching out to the people who live in Altona now and asking, what would you like to see when it comes to recreation and active transportation here? Tomorrow at 6 p.m., staff from the town of Altona and consultants will host a public pop-up to gather ideas. I spoke to Kyra Thurston, Altona's communications officer, and we chatted about that. She wants people to know this outreach and planning process, the one they're using, works.
We did actually have a recreation and active transportation master plan done in 1998. So that was the last time we had one done, and it led to really incredible developments in our community, such as the Millennium Exhibition Center, our Altona Aquatic Center, the local nature pond, along with a lot of the trail systems we have here in town. It is definitely something that produces real results.
How has Altona grown since that last master plan?
Oh, I was going through the plan a couple days ago, and just seeing even the population since then, we have far more diverse community. Our population in 2021 was 4,390 people. We do have a lot of immigration in our community. Between 2011 to 2021, we had around 490 people.
What was it that was bringing them to Altona?
We actually did have an immigration program that has recently ended or will be ending soon because Altona was just growing so quickly, and we try really hard to balance every area of the community. So like houses developing, keep that in line with the businesses that are growing and the amount of people that are coming in. So yeah, we're trying to grow our community at a balanced rate.
Did you find that there was the demand for housing and other services was just growing too quickly and you couldn't keep up?
Yeah, we have a new business park in Altona as well. So there's lots of job openings. Even just Friesens is a very, very large employer in our community. And I know that a lot of people that have immigrated here have come to work for businesses like that. And so I know that they were a big part of getting people to come out here and help out.
What communities or countries are these people coming from?
We have a very large Filipino community.
Did that immigration boom bring with it more young families? Did it change the age of people?
Yeah, it definitely brought a lot of families. One thing that we also noticed is it brought just a lot of different types of businesses and different types of cuisine that we never really had in the past. So yeah, it was really exciting, just different interests and lots of different people, even just seeing the schools and the diversity in the schools compared to when I was growing up. It's really amazing to see.
And that influx of young families means demand for recreation services, doesn't it?
Exactly, yes, and things that they're interested in. Way more sports and just interests. Like we have cricket now. Growing up here, I had never really even heard of cricket, never mind seeing people play it. And now that's what they have. We have someone actually hopefully coming to the event that represents that. Our softball program is expanding. There's been tons of development, so we're trying to get a sense of what the community needs now.
What currently exists in terms of infrastructure for active transportation in Altona?
So active transportation, we do have a very large trail system, which, as I mentioned, was something that came from our last plan. And I know that there is lots of wishes in that world, such as like more biking, like specific trails for biking or things like that. We do have a really good trail system in our Centennial Park, and it's starting to expand more throughout the whole town. So I know that is something that active transportation in particular people really, really are hoping to keep working on.
So this is step one of a series of public meetings?
So we do actually have a little bit of a timeline. And currently we're in June, which is our first round of community engagement. End of June into July, we are doing as much community engagement as possible and then taking that information and doing some draft plan development from July to September. And then in September, we're going to do a round 2 of community engagement. One thing we've kind of heard is that lots of people are hoping for maybe some sort of indoor turf. We do have a walking track in our exhibition center, but we don't have any form of indoor turf. So I know a lot of people that do indoor sports, especially in the winter, they've gone to different schools and they've used their gyms, but that's just size-wise really not ideal. And I think the closest type of indoor turf would be in Winkler, which is about a 30-minute drive. So having something like that in town, I know is something that a lot of people are wishing for.
It's turf, so you could use it for soccer.
Yeah, soccer, I guess the one in Winkler, I believe you can take the grass out, so it can be used for a variety of things. We also currently have pickleball that is usually just in the Pioneer Center in winter. So I know a lot of people have been wanting a proper pickleball court and things like that. So I think some sort of indoor facility is kind of one of the biggest things that people are dreaming of.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, of course.
Kyra Thurston is Altona's communications officer.
I'll think myself to death. potential fading. I'm turning 30 soon. You wipe my eyes, say no one's immune from aging. Our friends are 32. That's what you're supposed to do. Every little thing makes you wonder. Sometimes we're better in the dark. Uncertainty could be your art. Panic when I'm not in control. Imagine if you learn to let go. Wanna be in love with my life. What if you're doing everything right? You're terrified. What if it all just fades? There's something left to prove. Just look around. Darling, you've already made it. Your friends will get you through. 'Cause that's what we're supposed to do.
Maddie J. from Smithers, BC, featuring Chase Segley with Every Little Thing. It is 12:29, time to open the phone lines for our call-in conversation, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you. Has social media contributed to a mental health crisis among young people? A child psychologist joins us right after the 12:30 news and weather.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel in Winnipeg. At 12:30, it's 16 in Winnipeg. Cloudy today, 60% chance of showers. The latest Winnipeg Police statistical report shows violent crime and shoplifting is spiking. Violent crime was up 12% last year. Shoplifting has doubled in Winnipeg since 2021. Inspector Cam McKidd says provincial legislation helped tackle things like bear spray being used as a weapon, along with catalytic converter thefts.
Catalytic converters or bear spray, we had great effect with legislation, but those were very narrow problems that were solvable. Not to say retail theft isn't, but it's much more complex. There's apparel, electronics, there's food, there's thousands of different stores, and there's every type of person committing it.
McKidd says police work daily with the Retail Council to come up with new ways to foil shoplifters. Food Banks Canada says poverty is on the rise across Canada, and the situation may be much worse than what the official data shows. The organization's latest report says an estimated 1 in 4 Canadians are now living in poverty. Sarah Levitt has more.
There's such a range of circumstances.
Richard Mattern is the research director for Food Banks Canada. He says he was shocked by the organization's latest report into poverty in the country.
At food banks across the country, we've seen an almost 80% increase in food bank usage since 2019.
The report used a European model called the Material Deprivation Index. It monitors what a family can't afford, but also goods and services it may not have access to or can participate in. It's different from how poverty is calculated in Canada. According to the report, 1 in 4 Canadians are living in poverty, unable to afford 1 or 2 essential household goods each month, like rent or groceries. That's 15% higher than official estimates. Another estimate, 21.7% of the survey respondents said they couldn't cover an unexpected expense of $500. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Back in Winnipeg, more than 100 people lined up in the rain to be the first to get a Krispy Kreme donut. The iconic bakery opened its doors at 7 this morning. Michael Bahinsky says he fell in love with Krispy Kreme as a kid.
Anytime in the States, that's the first place I'm looking to. Any city, it's like they got a Krispy Kreme, and now to have one in Winnipeg is I'm still a little drowsy from being in and out of sleep all night with the storms, but I don't think I've ever been this excited my whole life. This is where everything's been leading to. This Krispy Kreme opening up.
Bahinsky says, as you heard there, he slept in his car during the storm overnight to be one of the first in line. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. More local news coming up at 1:30.
Thank you very much, Rosanna Hempel. The time is 12:33, and you're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, which you can listen to anywhere you want on the CBC News app, your CBC Listen app, or you can watch on YouTube. Just search for CBC Manitoba. You can watch and hear our calling conversations if you miss any of them. They're all online. Go to YouTube, search CBC Manitoba, look under live streams. Riley Lachuk is our CBC Manitoba weather specialist. Hi, Riley.
I just wanted to note first that it feels a lot more seasonal in here today.
In this room,
yes.
You mean? We've had such problems because they're working on the roof, and that's meant they've disconnected our regular air conditioning and sort of heat regulation, I think, because we went through days of it being way too sweltering hot in here. Today it's chilly.
It's cold in here today. Kind of matches what it's like outside right now, Janet.
Oh,
which is
yes.
what we'll start with. 15 degrees in Winnipeg right now, 13 in Morden Winkler, 12 in Melita, 14 in Brandon. Temperatures that are between about 5 and 10 degrees below seasonal for this time of the year. So a bit of a chillier day on tap. But things are looking up if you like the heat, Janet.
Most people do. I'm in the middle. I really like 25.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. 25, 26 is good for me.
Yeah.
A few still scattered showers across southern Manitoba. Fairly cloudy at this point, though. A lot sunnier to the north of us, though. So places like Thompson, Flin Flon, even Swan River looking at a mix of sun and clouds throughout the afternoon today. Still a few showers through the Westman region, a few scattered showers in the Red River Valley, and into northwestern Ontario, a little bit more of an organized rain still falling through places like Fort Francis into Atikokan, even into the Dryden region, looking at some showers and even some thunderstorms. Expect that to continue through the afternoon. Otherwise, we're looking at just kind of a mix of sun and clouds across Manitoba. Cloudier the further south you go. So for us in Winnipeg, we're looking at least at a mainly cloudy afternoon today with some showers throughout the afternoon. That does clear out through the overnight hours tonight. We're starting Wednesday, mainly sunny, really across the province. Maybe a few scattered showers yet across sort of central northern Manitoba, but we're setting up for a sunny Wednesday, sunny Thursday as well, and we're looking at very bright conditions as we start summer, of course, on Thursday afternoon officially. Maybe a couple of millimeters of rain yet to come across southern Manitoba. More like 15 to 30 millimeters yet for the further east you go into northwestern Ontario, so not Kenora per se, but Dryden and east, looking at more significant rain through the day, sort of the remnants of that system that we saw roll through overnight tonight. In Winnipeg, looking at about 17, 18 degrees throughout the afternoon today, 14 in Brandon this afternoon, a few lingering showers. Thompson, 14 today as well. 22 tomorrow, 26 on Thursday, 25 on Friday. Maybe a few late day showers on Saturday. Otherwise, I think we're looking at kind of a mix of sun and clouds, and 25 for Sunday.
Now, I do realize you are the messenger
yes.
and not actually the one who makes the weather happen, but I am growing weary of seeing raindrops on a weekend.
Yeah, I know.
If there's anything you could do to keep the rain
I'll
to
try.
Just those periods where we're sleeping.
Yes.
Okay, that'd be fine.
I'll try my best.
That'd be awesome. Riley Lachuk, our weather specialist here on CBC Manitoba. For television and for radio and online, he'll be back during Up to Speed today here on CBC Radio 1 between 3 and 6 p.m. Now, let's get to our call-in conversation. This is something that a lot of parents, a lot of people are concerned about, social media and its impact on children. The U.S. Surgeon General wants to see warning labels on social media platforms, like those warning labels that we see on cigarette cartons. Dr. Vivek Murthy told the New York Times, social media has contributed to a mental health crisis among young people. What do you think of this? What have you experienced in your family? Call in 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. Our guest today is Dr. Michelle Warren. She is a Winnipeg psychologist who's passionate about this subject. She works with children and adolescents. Thanks for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you very much for having me.
The Surgeon General referred to a mental health crisis among young people. Do you see that happening in Canada as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Canadian and American data is quite similar. Screen use and social media use is a little higher in the U.S. compared to Canada in terms of the amount of time that children are online and using it, but it really affects kids' mental health, and we have reason to believe particularly females and particularly younger teens.
204-780-0893. Call in now. What do you think we can do to protect children from social media if this is the case? Do you think a warning label, like the U.S. Surgeon General suggested, a warning label on social media platforms will work? What do you think needs to happen? And what have you witnessed in your own family? 204-780-0893. What does social media do to you? Does it make you feel a little bit of that fear of missing out, or like your life isn't as good as everybody else's? That's something that's hit me. Dr. Michelle Warren is our guest today. What kind of difference have you seen social media make in the lives of your patients?
And my own child and our friends and family out there who have come of age with social media, whether they're 12 or 20 years old, young people are growing up with feedback all the time about whether they fit in or how their appearance or their social lives compares to others. We're worried about compare and despair. We're worried about emotional contagion, which is what it's called in social psychology. When you see negative posts, they've done studies that your mood then comes down afterwards. And this is with young adults, with university students, let alone younger children. And also displacement, that kids aren't doing enough socializing in person and physical activity.
Right, because they're online all the time. That's where they think all their friends are. Okay, so many things you just touched on there. 204-780-0893 to join our conversation. We have been receiving some feedback today from radio listeners. We're going to go to Sophie now, who spoke with Marcy Marcusa about this on Information Radio this morning. Sophie did a social media break experiment to see how it would impact her mental health.
At the very beginning, the first day or two, it was really, really hard. I kept reaching for my phone and looking for my Instagram and Snapchat app, but it wasn't there because I deleted them. But towards the end of it, it felt like I don't know, like a weight off my shoulders, if that even makes sense. It's just like, oh, I don't even have to worry about it. I wasn't comparing myself to other people. I wasn't trying to keep up with other people. I wasn't wasting my time mindlessly scrolling. So again, challenging at first, but rewarding by the end of the week. And I have tried to instill shorter breaks because this was almost 5 years ago now. I've tried to instill shorter breaks whenever I feel like I need a little bit of a social media cleanse.
That was a young adult, young Manitoban talking with Information Radio this morning. What do you think of those breaks, Dr. Michelle Warren?
Wow, Sophie, so much self-control and awareness. Very, very impressive. I don't know how old she was exactly 5 years ago, but social media is designed to get us hooked and keep us hooked. And so can you imagine what self-control and commitment that took? And then she experienced this lift in her mood or in her activities on a daily basis. That's really impressive.
204-780-0893 if you want to weigh in on this. You don't have to be an expert. We just want to know how it makes you feel or how you worry that it's impacting your children or your grandchildren. Let's talk about that impact of all that negativity on not just your mood, but when we're talking about younger kids, what about brain development? Does screen time impact that as well?
Like they're starting to really look at that in research. First, we found that there was a correlation between excessive or problematic use with mood and other issues like academic issues.
But how do you define that? First of all, problematic use. Where's the line?
That's a great question. So different researchers define it differently. Problematic can be just too much time on screens. It can be an impact on your academic performance. It can be increased problems, conflict between parents and kids, and then increased anxiety and or depression, which again, we're seeing more in females than we are in males for various reasons, we think.
Okay, do we want to touch on those various reasons
Yeah,
now? Why?
yeah.
Why
Well,
women?
boys use more screens more to interact with others, like playing video games, or they are entertained. And they still have what's called parasocialization or passive use, just scrolling and looking at other people's posts, but they're doing less of that. Girls are doing more of that. And when they do it for a variety of psychological reasons, like females are more prone to be hard on themselves at a younger and an older age. So it's really impacting girls. They're using this passive way of getting information. They're not having as much fun and interacting with friends on social media. Sometimes they're setting up actual in real life social plans. Sometimes they're offering social support to one another, but they're also seeing the ways in which they don't stack up.
But they do stack up. It's the way their brains perceive them is not stacking up.
Yes.
I'm just, I just
You're worried about it.
I want to hug everybody and tell them they're okay, but I can't do that.
Well, I like the idea of a cleanse.
Like Sophie suggested. Andre, thank you for calling Radio Noon.
Oh, hello, Miss Stewart.
How are you?
I'm sorry. Just a minute. I'm going to get somebody to turn down my radio. Just a moment.
So one of the things we're talking about here, Andre is just going to get somebody to turn down the radio, which is a great idea if you call in, because otherwise you get echo and feedback and stuff like that. But hi, Andre.
I'm the fellow that you run into in the community from time to time.
It's nice to talk to you, my friend.
Anyway, I just wanted to say now, I'm a very, very anomalous person in that I am a complete and utter technophobe. I have no use for cell phones or any technological innovation of the past 30 years or so whatsoever. You know, I'm completely analog. You know,
Can I ask, Andre, why did you make that choice? I mean, I know just... Andre, often, if you live in the South Osborne area of Winnipeg, and I know this is very specific, but you can see there's a very fashionable guy in a big black cowboy hat in a wheelchair. He often wears a poncho. That's Andre. Thanks for calling, Andre. Why have you made the choice to stay off social media and cell phones?
Because they hurt me. They make me feel terrible about the direction of the society has gone in. And I feel like people are so disconnected from the energy of life, from each other, from basic decency, politeness. When I go by people and I say, "Excuse me," they look at me as if to say, "What do you want? What are you asking of me? You know, why are you bothering me?" You know, they'll cut right in front of you, not paying you any attention. You know, looking on their cell phones, and then when you get mad at them for it, they look at you as if you're insane.
It's so hard to tell now, Andre, too. I find this, Dr. Michelle. Thank you for calling, Andre. Is you can't tell these days when somebody's got their earbuds, whatever, in, and they're in. Often, you know, I'm like Andre. I'll pass somebody and want to say hello, want to have social interaction and look someone in the eye, and often everybody's zoned out. So there's larger implications of that as well. What concerns do you have?
Well, I do think that for those of us who have, any tendency towards shyness, which is a very normal way to feel at different points in all our lives. But when it gets in the way, when we have anxiety about social interactions, I think we're really at a disadvantage if we're not practicing or facing our fears on a regular basis and practicing making eye contact, like such a fundamental social skill and way of communicating. You're making great eye contact right now, by the way. And that's important. It lets me know you're listening to me. It lets me know that you're caring or paying attention to what I'm saying. If people are looking down on their phones, or if kids and teens aren't used to looking around a room, a crowded restaurant, or a school classroom, making eye contact because people are looking down at their devices, they're missing out on a lot of skill building.
How much do you spend time now compared to 10 years ago teaching those skills?
Yes, it is a little bit of a passion of mine. Some of my clients out there know that I can be a bit irritating because I'm always getting them to practice things like body language, tone of voice, and eye contact. And we frame it a lot as communication skills and assertiveness training. And it's something that kids and teens will learn when we practice it. A lot of them also know what to do, but they don't show what they know because it feels awkward or unusual, right? Like sometimes I strike them perhaps as cringy when I actually look right at them. It's like I'm staring, right? But these are great skills to develop, and we need to build our social muscle because so much of success in life is based on social skills and being adaptable and working and meeting with lots of different people.
We have another caller. Natasha reached out to our listener line. She is a teacher, and let's hear what she had to say.
Okay.
I am a high school teacher, and I would like to add to the conversation my personal experience as a teacher of grades 9 to 12, and that is that phones are completely out of control in classrooms. And despite my best efforts to ask students to put them away, to put them in their bag, leave them in their locker, what I see is that they are literally not able or capable of doing that. So it creates a lot of distractions in my classroom, and really, I see it daily. It interferes with learning all the time. I would say pretty much constantly. So I would be very happy if there were I didn't have to fight this battle by myself individually. Myself and all the other high school teachers out there. So it would be great if there was sort of a widespread effort to put phones in their place and put the focus back on learning in classrooms. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Natasha, for calling our listener line. I've heard that from a lot of high school teachers, that it is a battle they wish they didn't have to fight. How do you teach teenagers, Dr. Michelle Warren, that this is an addictive thing and that they're actually hooked and that that's bad for them?
Well, I think that's exactly what you do. I think this needs to be part of kids' curriculum starting as young as the middle of elementary school. So kids are spending on average, as of 2022 Canadian data, kids are spending an average of 2 hours a day, or the majority of kids are, between the grades of 4 and 6, let alone adolescents, on recreational screens. So these kids are on social media. We know that they just have to enter their age. They can make up a bogus age to go on different sites. And we're not teaching them how to use these sites and protect themselves. I don't think it's any parent's fault per se. I think it's just our responsibility to sort of catch up. I know I was caught unawares when my child started using social media because I wasn't on it and I was too busy and not paying attention sometimes to the negative effects. And so I think that we need to formally teach kids about this. Kids are savvy. They now know and express concerns about how their data is kept and things like secrecy, and they understand marketing. So I think we need to teach them explicitly that they are, for lack of a better term, being manipulated.
That's a really smart idea, but I also know that kids, they like it and their friends are there, and isn't social interaction, and they think that's what they're getting, social connection through this phone.
Right.
Isn't that the main driver of a teenager pretty much?
Yeah, I think that it is, but I think that if we're teaching them before they get access and then we're teaching them screen skills, and as parents and teachers putting hard work before screen access. But what I heard from Natasha is she is fighting an uphill battle. So hats off to her, and hats off to any educators or administration who are considering not having phones in the classroom. And, I'm sorry to my clients and my own young adult daughter out there that I think a lot of people are used to using their phones, and it's unusual and in some cases even a bit painful to be cut off. But I know that they have to concentrate. They're at a disadvantage. Kids don't read books nearly as much as they used to because they're too busy scrolling and reading things online.
204-780-0893. If you need a toll-free number, it's 1-800-268-5483. Weigh in on this. We want to know how you tackle the conversation with your kids, what impact this has had on your life, or if you've got questions for a child psychologist. We have one right here on this very question. What role, and I just want to help too.
Yeah.
So if you've got any tips on for parents or caregivers on handling this, what would you say for, say, age?
Yes.
Of getting a cell phone.
There is no black and white age. I think what we have to do is we have to assess a child's maturity and awareness, and then we have to monitor them. So Canadian data shows that only 9 or 10% of parents actually monitor the content of children's use of social media. 90% don't. And I'm sure a lot of those are well-meaning, busy parents out there. And similarly, kids say that about 90% of their parents don't monitor the content of what they're on and are focused more on time limits, which even aren't strictly enforced.
Ah.
Yeah.
How do you monitor it?
Well, my suggestion is that parents follow the youngest kids when they first go on, and that it's just understood that if you're on social media, I'm following your account, and that you're not allowed to have other accounts, just like I wasn't allowed to go out on the streets of downtown when I was in grade 5 by myself at night. It's that type of thing. This is, it's the internet highway we have to protect kids from now. They actually go out less and are in less physical danger from things like accidents.
But there's danger online too.
But there's danger online, and they're more depressed and anxious than before.
Oh my goodness. We've got a couple of more listener lines because this is such a topic that people care about. Let's go to one of them right now on how social media impacts thinking.
I agree 100% with putting warning labels on items, because it's that casual reminder that you just need every once in a while when you've been on a little too long and you start to think differently. It affects you. So you start to put it down. And if that warning was there, I think it would really help everybody, just so that they have that reminder that, yes, there is no scientific proof that this does, or no, there is scientific proof that it affects the way that you think. Thank you.
And thank you for calling into Radio Noon. So a warning pops up on the screen, and what would you like it to say if that ever happened, Dr. Michelle?
I would like it to warn parents and teens themselves. So parents of young children and teens, and then teenagers themselves are old enough to hear about this and think critically about it. That social media is designed to get your attention and keep you hooked, and that it's difficult to have self-control. I think we all have done this. I've done this. We expect our adolescents to somehow miraculously have enough self-control to withstand the addictive effects of social media that Silicon Valley has purposely designed for these different companies that run these sites. But, I got frustrated with my teen, and lots of my parent clients did too, thinking I've got this smart, mature young person. Why do they spend so much time online? Why can't they just put down their phone? And then at some point it dawned on me, that's really unfair. I'm a full-grown adult, and I need to take responsibility for helping.
Let's go to one more call from a listener.
Hey, I'm just calling in about the warnings for the cell phone for social media. I think it's a great idea. I think we've unleashed something that is probably the most addictive thing we've ever had as a human race. And it's a problem. It's a problem for adults. It's a problem for young children who are now being inundated with social media. I think we as a society really need to nip it in the bud early and start talking about regulation and what kind of health consequences are happening around cell phone and social media usage. Anyways, I think it's a great thing. It's a good first step. Thank you. Bye.
And thank you for calling. And what about a time thing
Mhm.
on that warning? Because I'm sure there's a way a device could tell and say, you've been on social media for 2 hours. You've been on for 47 minutes. Just a reminder.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Janet.
Thank you. I just came to me. But because how many times I've done it too, and I don't even like social media. I try to avoid it,
Yeah.
but you can get on there and just scroll and you're in, oh, look, what the girl that I went to high school with 40 years ago had for breakfast today. You get into a hole, right?
Yeah.
Let alone on TikTok or something that's feeding you these videos all the time.
Yes, and no offense to you or other middle-aged adults, but I'm really concerned with young people, with kids and young adults' brains that are even still developing into their 20s. And I really think that time warning or a timer that's just part of when you're on social media and warns you when you've been on too long is really smart. But let's face it, it's going to take government regulation to do that, because why would a for-profit company that designed these sites and sells advertising based on the number of users on at any given time, why would they accept regulation? Like, there's regulation about some content around hate speech, let's say, nowadays, and that's been very controversial, especially in the US. So I think in Canada, it's going to take a similar effort as the Surgeon General in the US to force companies to do the right thing, at least by children, and to actually look at the science rather than just say people have to consent. And if they say that they're 16 or 18 or whatever age limit, then they've consented, and it's up to parents to monitor that.
Yeah, because that's a lot to put on a parent as well. And it is up to a parent to monitor it, but I agree with you. Now I want to know, Manitoba, do you agree that this is the right thing to do, that it's going to take government intervention? You can leave a message anytime by calling this line, 204-788-3797. That's the number to leave a message, 204-788-3797. We need to keep this conversation going. Dr. Michelle Warren, have you heard anything in Canada that makes you think Canadian politicians might be watching what the Surgeon General does and thinking the same thing?
Well, I haven't quite heard it yet from Canadian politicians, but I know in mental health, a lot of people are really, really interested. And we just published a handout. The clinical health psychology colleagues and myself just printed one, and we're disseminating it to healthcare professionals to give them information, and parents, wherever they are, parents of clients as well, about monitoring kids' screen use. And specifically social media for teens and females especially. Avoid beauty content, avoid hateful content.
Dr. Michelle Warren was our guest today. Thank you so much for coming in. And thank you, Manitoba, for listening and for joining our call-in conversation. Thanks to everyone who helped put the program on today. That would include Travis Peterson and Dylan Longhurst. Thank you, May McKillop, and thank you, Wendy Parker. My name is Janet Stewart, and I hope you'll join us again tomorrow for Radio Noon. Have a great day. Coming up next on CBC Radio 1, it's Unreserved.